say?
You have 8 or 10?
4.
Okay, it'll grow. It'll
Just
grow.
A strong group.
Good, good. Well, I must say it's self-selected.
Yeah. That was really lovely.
Yeah. Ah, da, 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 da,
Shabbat Shalom, everybody at home, everybody here.
Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Good to see you, those who are here. I'll make the sound of the throng that's here. Wow! Wow! We have about 185 people here. And it's really great to see them all. And great to see you all on screen. You came for a wonderful Shabbat. It's a triple play Shabbat. Tonight begins what is called Shabbat Shirah, the Sabbath of song, relating to the song that is sung after the splitting of the sea and the, if you will, the victory, if you will, over the Egyptians who were chasing the Israelites. There's a great song that we'll be singing tomorrow morning in our Torah service. The second is that it is author Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and we take it very seriously here with our work in civil rights and everything that we do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And the third piece, believe it or not, there's actually a third piece, and that is that Sunday evening, Tu B'Shvat begins. Tu B'Shvat means the 15th of the month of Shvat, and that is Rosh Hashanah. It's one of the 4 Rosh Hashanahs of the year. I assume if we sold tickets, we get a bigger crowd here on Tu B'Shvat, I guess. But no, Tu B'Shvat is the Jewish Arbor Day. It's become a very important part of the renewed environmental consciousness that we have. And it is supposedly the time in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, where we begin to see a change in the rains. And I'll talk a bit of now. There are 2 kinds of rain that we really want to see happen. There's the rain that starts right after Sukkot, Festival of Booths in the fall, and that's called Yoreh. Yoreh. And that is heavy rain. Boom, boom, boom. Makes everything muddy. I still remember being in Israel at a time when all the streets were not paved and there was like really great mud. You would sink into it and you had to pull your leg out of it, really amazing mud. And then at Tu B'Shvat, you hope that that changes and you no longer have the heavy torrential rain, but you get a rain called Malkosh. Malkosh. And that's an easier rain, more, if you will, gentle, because things are starting to sprout in the land of Israel. Here, invariably, over the last 50, 60 years, it's usually been associated with the coldest day of the year in Boston for some reason. And we will have that, God willing, tomorrow. And Sunday night, there's a Tu B'Shvat Seder that will be online. And Tu B'Shvat is when the almond blossoms, the almond tree blossoms, the beginning, if you will, of the harbinger of springtime. And so we have all those 3 things that we'll be talking about somehow during this service. So our kavanah for the service, our intentionality is to take all of these things into our Shabbat. The story of, if you will, the leaving of Egypt and the splitting of the sea. Also taking into account the fact that Martin Luther King was truly one of the more remarkable people of the last century. And third, that we have this hope springs eternal. But we're hoping that spring will spring, basically. That would be wonderful as we look forward to the future. So we're going to be lighting candles. If you're able to stand wherever you are, please rise if you're able to.
And if you want to join us on the bima, as we all say the blessing for the candles together.
And if you're at home and like
more
to
than
set
welcome.
up your candles now, this is a good time to do it. Don't be afraid. We don't bite or anything. We only bite if you ask us to bite, and then we will bite you. I've gotten very few requests for that, by the way, over the years.
That's probably a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Come closer. It's all right. 5, 6 feet. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, my friends, what the Shabbos candles, as you know, represent are 2 aspects of the Shabbat. One is the memory of Shabbat, consciousness of Shabbat, Shabbat consciousness, and the other is Shabbat observance. And most people are somewhere in between. Some people aren't even yet at consciousness. We're hoping they get to there, to know that it's Shabbat, that we'd already be, whoo, hallelujah, right? And observance is, people do it in their own ways, and many people do it by refraining from commerce, refraining from everyday work. And you don't have to be orthodox for that. You need a break from your computer. That's the bottom line. We're all addicted to this phones ringing and answering it and bubbles and praise and this and that, and we need a break. And Shabbat offers that break. So if you haven't tried, try a little bit of a computer fast, at least for tonight. And if you can extend it in tomorrow, that would be great as well. So, Holy One of Blessing, your presence fills creation. Your presence fills creation. Oh, your presence fills creation. Oh, Holy One of Blessing, your presence fills creation. Your presence fills creation. Oh, your presence fills creation. We're taking the light of the candles, connected with our inner light as we cover our eyes and we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Eloheinu melech haolam, Eloheinu melech haolam. אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll return to our seats here, and you may be seated if you are at home. On page 2 in our Siddur, there's a beautiful hymn. And this hymn is originally not connected to Kabbalat Shabbat. Yeah, the Siddurim are there, right, on the shelf. Yeah. So they're not originally connected, but it's a wonderful exercise in learning about the four-letter name of God. If you look at the first letter, the Hebrew of each paragraph, you'll see a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, and a Hey. And that's the four-letter name of God, which cannot be pronounced. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Moshe HaZikri, many centuries ago, put a beautiful poem together based upon the four-letter name. Yedid nefesh Avarachaman Mishoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kimo Hayal Yishtachave El Emul Hadorecha Yerav Lo Yedidutecha Mino Fetzuf Vechol Toam. How splendid is your light, which worlds do reflect. My soul is one from craving for your love's delight. Please, good God, do heal her and show her your face, so my soul can see you and bathe in your grace. There she will find strength and healing in this sight. Her joy will be completed, eternal her delight. Vatiyehuna rachamecha v'chusana al ben ahuvecha. Ki ze kama nichsofti lirot meira b'tiferet uzecha. Erech chamda libi v'chusana ve'atid alam. Oh, help my lover spread your canopy of peace, enfold all human beings, give all pains surcease. Your presence on this earth plain do make known to us, and we shall respond with song and with dance. Rush, my love, be quick, the time for love is now. Let your gentle favor grace us as of old. Kabbalat Shabbat, receiving of the Shabbat, begins on page 3 with a series of psalms. And if you notice in the illustration on each page, each psalm denotes a different branch on the tree of life. This is the mystical tree of life. And each one of them basically gives us a kavanah, a way of intentioning, saying of that psalm. So this one is chesed, which is loving kindness or compassion. So think within yourselves for a moment, if you will, for some compassionate action that you've either performed, hopefully many this week, and a compassionate act that you have received. It's a wonderful way of approaching life, is that you can also, besides giving, which a lot of people find easier to do and harder to receive. So keep that in mind as we do the psalm, page 3. Lechu deranena la'ayad, na'aria letzur yishenu, nikal mafana betoda, bezmirot na'aria lo, ki legadol Adonai, umelech gadol al kol Elohim, Asher biyado mechkerei haaretz, betoafot harim lo. Ay, 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 Arba'im shana kul bedor, ve'omaram to'e levavhem, ve'hem lo yadu drachai, asher nishbati be'api, im yavoun el menuchati. Our next psalm, Psalm 96 on page 5, and you'll notice on the tree of life, this is Gevurah. Gevurah means judgment, but it also means boundary. And we know that even an overflow of compassion can sometimes be deleterious if you don't balance it with boundary. So for this psalm, keep that kavanah of how you find the boundaries that you need in your life. And all of us need those in order to really grow and really be able to do what we have to do in the world.
Yanna ya ya yanna ya hanna ya 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 hanna ya ya hanna Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Safru Vagoyim Kevodo, Bechol Ha'amim Miflotav, Ki Gadol Adonai, Umulo Meo. עוז ותפארת במקדשו. הבו לאדוני משפחות עמים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז. היי היי היי
לפני אדוני קיווה לשמות הארץ, ישמותיה בצדק, וימים באמונתו. And for boundary, we move on the next Psalm, Psalm 6. Excuse me, page 6, Psalm 97, to Tiferet. Tiferet means splendor, but it also means bringing together things, bringing stuff together, pulling your pieces together, taking chesed, compassion, gevurah, boundary, and creating a balance. There is no spiritual tradition of any kind that does not teach balance, a center core, right? Whether it's chakras, if you're into Kundalini yoga, whatever it is, it's always how do you find the center. And Tiferet is splendorous. Why is it splendorous? Because it has that capacity to create balance within us. So the last lines of page 6, Psalm 97.
O Yirishei lev simcha, O Zarua LaTzadik, O Yirishei lev simcha, Simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, ve'hodu lezecher kodsho. Hey, Zarua LaTzadik Ulishlev Simcha, Simchu Tzadikot Ba'Adonai, Ve'hodu Lezecher Kodsho. Simchu Tzadikim Ba'Adonai, Ve'hodu Lezecher Kodsho. Light is sown for the tzaddik, the just one, and simcha, gladness for those who are ethical. Tzaddikim, just ones, rejoice in Yah and give thanks to God's holy name, to the consciousness of Yah's uniqueness. We move to Psalm 98, which is found on page 8, middle of the page. We say, Zamru la'anai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra. Sing to God with a harp and with all the voice of song. There's a wonderful, beautiful little vignette in the Talmud that teaches us that King David slept with a harp just above his head. And every night at midnight, a wind would come by and play the harp, which would wake him up. And then aroused, he would study Torah all night until it was time for the morning service at the break of dawn. I think that's just a beautiful image, to be so passionate about something that you stay up all night studying it, being with it, and hopefully all of us have that passion for something, for work, for Torah, for a person, for a cause, something that just keeps us up at night, something that we can't go to bed without having it a part of our lives. And all of us have something that shows us what's important and something that reminds us as to what's important.
For David, it was his harp, his kinnor. And for some other people, it may be singing, community, justice, food. All of us have our own instrument, something that wakes us up and reminds us what's important in life. And I think this is an inspiration for us to keep that thing that reminds us of what's important close to us, right above our heads, so that it's constantly with us and constantly inspires us, just like David's harp inspired him. And if we are able to do that, to have all that inspiration so close to our hearts, then hopefully we have a little bit of a brighter world, a brighter self, and a brighter community as well.
Middle of page 8.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, vekol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, vekol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, vekol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, vekol zimra.
לפני אדוני, קיווה לשבות הארץ, לשבות תבל בצדק, וימים באמונו, ומשרים. On page 99, as you notice, we move now to Hod. Hod is this capacity to be grateful. Probably the word Todah comes from Hod. Todah Rabbah, you may have heard that expression. And Hod can mean many different things as well, but it's also something that supports you. Netzach was the last psalm. Hod is this psalm. It supports, if you will, it's often seen as your legs, supporting the upper body. The legs, of course, are also what lead you into action, taking a step, moving along. So we talk about raising up. This is something that we have the capacity to do, is to take something and raise it up. What does that mean, to raise it up? It means creating a new meaning for it. We raise up something mundane and we make it special. All right. Took the Shabbat day, the seventh day of the week, and it was just the day of the week, and we made it into a special day of the week. And it's important to do so because we have to understand that we imbue things with holiness. Things are not holy. I don't even like the word holy. I find it, it's a very Christian word. I like special better. Things are special, but you have to make them special. Shabbat, for instance, you make Shabbat. Lasot et Shabbat. You make it. It doesn't happen by itself. So it's basically our capacity to take the mundane and raise it up that gives things something that we need and something that we can ultimately see as quite special in our lives. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, raise Yah who guides us, and worship at Yah's holy hill. For Yah who guides us is unique and holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. O ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. Page 10, Psalm 29. We're in the place of Yesod on the tree of life. Yesod is foundation. And it's a passageway over all of the energetics of the universe. It's a passageway which will bring us into Shabbat, into Shekhinah, into the indwelling presence of God within us. The last two lines on page 10. Adonai l'hamabul yashav v'yeshev Adonai melech le'olam Adonai ozu yamo yiteinu Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Before we get into Shabbat, we have to woo Shabbat in. And here's a wooing song on page 12. It's a wonderful hymn written by a man called Shlomo, and you'll notice that he put his first letter of his name in the first four stanzas. Big Shin, big Lamed, you see that? The Mem, the Hey, that's Shlomo. It's the way people used to sign their poetry, by taking an acrostic of the name, of the use of the name. Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishbiyanu el hamiyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem u'letiferet ve'letila Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Legerat Shabbat lechu v'nelecha Ki mikor ha'beracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Mikdash melech ir melucha Kumitzi mitoch afecha Ralach shevet be'emek habacha Vehu yachamol alayich emla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla V'hidarim ve'yafarfu mi Leshi b'gdei tifartecha mi Al yad Yishai beit halachmi Korvo al nafshi nafshi geyala Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla Lecha dodi legerat kala pnei Shabbat nekabla
The second stanza of 13.
Hitoreri, ki ba'orech u'miuri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla, lecha dodi, lekerat kala, penei Shabbat nikabla, lecha dodi, lekerat kala, penei Shabbat nikabla, lo תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונבנתה עיר עתילה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, והיו למשיעי שוסייך, ורחקו כל מבלייך, יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, כי משוש לתנא מעלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תעריצי, אל יריץ בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, היי דרי די די, היי דרי די די, דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, בואי בשלום עטרת בבלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני אב סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לה לה לי לה לה, יה לה לי לה לה, היי 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 לה לי לה לה, the bottom of page 14, a lovely blessing about the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah means the dwelling, what dwells within you, the indwelling presence. And it says, may the Shekhinah, the holy presence that brings forth the female in the divine, spread her wings over you and protect you. May her light shine upon you with compassion, and may her countenance illumine your lives with wholeness and peace. The Psalm for the Sabbath day on page 15, Psalm 92. Mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor, shir, leyom ha-Shabbat. Oh, mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor, shir, leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor, shir, shir leyom
מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, ליום השבת. It is good to give thanks to Yah, to sing praises to the exalted Most High name, Elyon, the Most High, to declare your loving kindness in the morning, your faithfulness in the nights, with an instrument of 10 strings, with a navel, the dulcimer, with a solemn sound upon the kinnor, the harp. For you, Yah, has made me glad through all of your works, and I will be joyous and exult in the work of your hands. How great, ma gadlu, are your works, Yah. Your thoughts arise from the very depths of creation. A brutish person will not perceive this, nor will a fool comprehend this. The last 4 lines on the page. Tzadik atama yifrach ke'eres balvanon yizke shetulim bebeit Yah bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva deshenim verananim yiyu lehagi ki yashar Yah suri velo avlatabo. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. They shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Pray, planted in the house of Yah, that shall flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bring forth fruit in old age. They will be juicy and rich with sap. To declare that Yah is upright, my rock, in whom there is no falsehood or wickedness. The middle of the sister psalm, Psalm 93 on page 16. Bekolot mayim rabim, adirim mishbereyam, adirim mishbereyam, adirim marom Adonai, adirim marom Adonai, edotecha nehemenu me'od, leveitcha navakodesh, Adonai liorech yamim, Adonai liorech yamim. Those among us who are in mourning, who are commemorating a yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 17. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
V'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol bet Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei rabba mevorach lam u'me'omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach. V'yitpo'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekutsha.
B'chu.
Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'yimru.
Amen. Amen.
Yehei shloma rabba mishemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru. Amen. You may be seated. My friends, before we begin our evening worship, this was called pray. Okay? This was to get us into Shabbat. And as I mentioned last time I was here, for us this is rather contemporary. It's only 500 years old. Because the Psalms that we were singing are 1,500 years old. So for us, anything that happened 500 years ago, still pretty new stuff. But I think it's here to stay. I think it's here to stay. So as I mentioned, we have a triple play Shabbat. We have Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbat of song, where we sing the song of the sea, the song of Moshe, the song of his sister Miriam. And we also have Tu B'Shvat starting Sunday night, the Arbor Day, the Rosh Hashanah of the trees. And we have Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
Now, I want to say a few words about Martin Luther King, if I may. One of the things that people often forget, and I think is one of the most important things and his great success, like the Dalai Lama as well, is they both were committed to what is called by Gandhi Satyagraha. Anyone hear the term Satyagraha? That's a very intense term meaning nonviolence. And of course, nonviolence can be understood in different ways, but it basically says that if you react to things with violence, you violate whatever value you're trying to bring to the world. And he was quite successful with nonviolence. Not everybody agreed with him. If you for a certain age, many of you, you're not there, but at a certain age, there was a lot of conflict about it. Different groups started, all kinds of the SNCC and other things, and CORE, etc., who said, no, you've got to be more violent. Then, of course, later on, the Black Panthers, who basically saw it as that there was an armed struggle. And a lot of these divisions, of course, still exist. For the most part, I must say, this is what I was very proud about Black Lives Matter, was that continued in the King tradition. I'd like to just read a little bit from his last sermon. He was shot the next day. This is in Memphis, Tennessee, April 3rd, 1968. And it has two names, this sermon. One is, I See the Promised Land, and the other is, I've Been on the Mountaintop. I can't read it all to you, and I won't, but there are three basic key quotes from it, which I hope will sink in. This was delivered as he appeared to support the garbage workers of Memphis and their strike. And he always was very keen on the fact that economic progress was one of the essential things of helping the black community reach its goals of equality. Three things, he said. True peace, he said, is not merely the absence of tension. Keep that in mind. It is the presence of justice. Right? All too often we want peace that is tranquility. Kumbaya, we should hold each other. That's not what happens. What happens is that it creates that kind of space. Peace can create a space where justice can emerge. The second is a very famous one, perhaps one of his most famous ones. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And of course, something that we all know deep in our hearts, he articulated very succinctly by saying, we must live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And in that talk, of course, he had some intimations. As I say, I can't read all the 8 pages of it for you now, but I do recommend look it up, okay? It's called I See the Promised Land, or I've Been on the Mountaintop. It's just a very well-known piece. He has, even at the end of the talk, he has a sense of his own mortality. I don't think he was clairvoyant or he thought he was going to be killed the next day. By the way, he was on his way up to a Seder at Abraham Joshua Heschel's home. Abraham Joshua Heschel, who marched with him in Selma, had become a close friend. And it was the day when there was a much, if you will, healthier, from my point of view, black-Jewish alliance, which I think today is withered away to a certain degree. But it was a very powerful thing to have that black-Jewish alliance. So he knew that he was threatened, and he probably was threatened through his whole career, as people now are being threatened when people don't agree with them. Rather sad. They were telling me now, it doesn't matter now. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. And the pilot said over the public address system, we are sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane, and to be sure that all the bags were checked, and be sure that nothing would be wrong with the plane, we had checked out everything carefully. And we've had the plane protected and guarded all night. And then I got to Memphis, he says. And some began to say that threats, or talk about the threats that were out there. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he allowed me to go up the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Well, if that's a premonition, I don't know, but it certainly was facing the reality of the fact that this movement was seen, as the movement today for Black Lives Matter, is seen as something very dangerous. And that's something we have to bear in mind. You have to bear in mind that people see these movements, this movement for equality and justice, they see it as something that will undermine status. That's what's very potent. It's very potent today in this political divisiveness we see, is that each side sees the other as an existential threat. And when you see the other as an existential threat, you are less and less inclined to reach out to the other side. And that's really where we are. How to solve it? If I knew, I'd give it to you, and it would be all wonderful tomorrow. I don't know how. Except I am eager, and I've tried very, very much to understand both sides and understand why, on those who are, let's say, opposed to what we would call the struggle for equality and justice, what is it that they really fear? And I don't want to paint it with a broad brush. I think it's always a problem of painting things with a broad brush, because in that constituency, which is quite large, by the way, there are all kinds of people. And I must say, we have to also admit that in that group, there are people of goodwill as well. There are people of goodwill as well, who see that in some way that their critique of what's going on is a critique worth making. And I sometimes understand what their critique is. And I think their critique is larger than a critique of Black Lives Matter or the equality of black people in this country. I think it's more than that. I think it's a real fear, rightly held, I'll say rightly held, that there's been a tremendous debilitation of American culture. We have become, at least in the last probably more than 100 years, but certainly in the last 50 years that I can attest to, we've become quite vulgar as a society. We have. When Jerry Springer became the most commonly denominator of popular culture, you began to ask questions. And I think there are people out there, particularly people of a certain, if you will, cultural fear, is that they say if we don't prevail in basically keeping the status quo, it could get even worse. And as I look around at American culture, I too have to somehow say, maybe there is something we could improve upon there as well. So I take that seriously as a critique. The second thing, of course, is this idea, which is totally unfounded, by the way. But by the way, we live in, as you know, in a time when facts don't matter. So it doesn't matter what the reality is. It matters what people perceive and feel. And there is this perception, which is totally not founded on any kind of reality, that somehow white people will somehow become subjugated. You know, it's totally, I mean, still, for all of the talk about, you know, that American population and demography will change so rapidly that, you know, people of color will become the majority, there is this great fear, and it's a projection, of course. It's a projection. Most fears that we have are projections, right? We have subjugated black people for so long, so the projection is if the power differential changes, that's what they'll do to us. Now, is that a projection that they deserve it, in a way, because of what they did? But this is very, very important for them, this projection that somehow their freedom is at stake. And that's why you can hear these what we seem to say is crazy notions that the people on January 6th were freedom fighters. That's the terms they use, by the way, right? They were fighting for our freedom. So that's another thing that's dividing us. And on the other side of the spectrum, which I'm part of it, but I don't want to be painted with a broad brush as well. I'm not a spokesman for any one group. I'm not a spokesman for any one ideology. I can only speak for myself. I see that sometimes there is this, there is a bit, and this people might get angry at me, that's okay, is that at one time in Martin Luther King's day, famous March on Washington in 1963 and others, he said, I don't want my children judged by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. Right? And at that time, that was like, wow, of course. Of course. And yet today, I'm beginning to see, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on where you are in this. So I'll speak only for myself. I'm not talking for TBZ. Let's make it very clear. I'm not talking for TBZ. I don't go to the board to have them check what I'm going to say, and neither do they want to check what I want to say. But I'm saying at this time, I'm getting a little concerned that we're not judging people by the content of their character. We're judging them by their skin color. Not the group that doesn't want equality, but those of us who claim to be on the progressive side now want to see the color of skin as the foremost first thing that we should be paying attention to. And secondly, the content of character. I understand it. I understand it intellectually. I don't understand it emotionally. Intellectually, I know. There is now a time, even in the day of King, right, just 55, 60 years ago, he was saying the day of reckoning has come. Well, the day of reckoning is still to come. And we have to be, I think, careful to understand that we have to judge people, I believe, still by the content of character. That if we hear people espousing hate on the quote-unquote progressive side, we should be able to condemn that as easily as we condemn people who do it on the other side. And like everything else, we have so many divisions within each of these groups. So many challenges from extremes on both sides. And I think we have to basically create a balance. And I think that's what Martin Luther King was all about. He was for integration, not separation. For integration and not separation. And now I hear and feel that there are some parties on the progressive side that are talking again about segregation. There should be black institutions, black dorms, right, black dining rooms, and white dining rooms. So it's a little bit upsetting to me. And maybe that has to be the case now, the way things are. But I really hope that we could go back to the message of King, which I think is an important message that we have. So thank you for coming tonight. We'll be starting our evening service on page 19. I invite you to our service. If you're able to rise, please rise. Page 19.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Amrach Le'olam Va'ed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. The first blessing before the Shema, the blessing of light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. We're on page 19. בחוכמה פותח שערים, בתבונה משנה עתים, מחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולו מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור. הוא מעביר יום ומביא לילה, הוא מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד.
Baruch atah Hamari Varavi.
Amen.
The gift of love, page 20.
Tolam bitsam chavta. Torah mitzvot chukim upshitim otanu lemata. Al ken nalenu b'shachvenu v'kubenu nasiach b'chukecha. V'nizmach b'divrei todecha misozecha le'olam va'ed. Ki heim chayinu v'yoch yamenu v'hem negei yomam v'alayla. Because these give us life. Your everlasting love gives us life. Ve'vatzecha tzisim miminu l'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev hamo Yisrael.
Amen. On page 21, Shema, our shout into the world. Shema, Yisrael, Havayah, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Hashem kavod v'chutod yolam v'rei. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושנתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. Middle of page 24, let's read together. It's a wonderful interpretation of the second paragraph of the Shema. If I carefully follow the way I've been shown, the way of justice, mercy, and humility, serving life with the fullness of my life, then the earth will flourish with righteousness and riches. Pure rain will fall in its season, and the earth will bring forth her bounty. My labors will flourish, and the fragrance of life will scent the air like fine oil. There'll be food enough for all, and all will be able to partake of it. No one will exploit another, for no other shall be separate from the one. But beware, if I follow another path, pursuing gods of narrow desire, who separate one from another in quest of power and control, then the heavens will rain poison, creation will fall ill, and I and all will soon disappear from this good earth. Therefore I impress these words upon my heart to quell anger. I bind them on my hands to stop violence. I set them before my eyes to see the one who is all. By word and by deed I teach them. I repeat them at home and away, morning and night. I write them upon the doorposts of my home and upon my gate, that my dwelling be a haven from ignorance and delusion. Then my days and the days of my people will endure forever, one generation passing righteousness and kindness to the next, all the days of the earth. Adonai Elohechem. Page 25, we have the Song of Redemption. And of course, this is a song that is part of the Song of the Sea that Moshe sang, and the Song of Miriam. Miriam, who is called a prophet at this point, emerges as an important figure, one of the three people, if you will, who lead the children of Israel through their wanderings, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And she brought the women, and they sang, and there's a wonderful song. Are we able to get that up on the screen? Miriam's song.
I have sheets, I'll grab
You
for
have
people.
sheets as well? Let me have one as well. This was written by Debbie Friedman. Debbie Friedman's yahrzeit happens to be this weekend, Shabbat Shira. She passed away about 10 years ago. For those who don't know who Debbie Friedman is, she was a very important contributor to a change in American liturgical music. Started off within the Reform movement. She created new songs, new tunes, and was very much seen as a pioneer in creating a new kind of spiritual connection. So in the memory of Debbie Friedman, whose yahrzeit is this week, we'll sing the Michamocha, Ve'elim Adonai, Michamocha Nedar B'Kodesh, Norat Hilot Osefele.
who is like your majestic in holiness, awe-inspiring in splendor, doing wonders.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם, משה ומרים בני ישראל, לך נראה שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
ונאמר כי ודע עיני את יעקב, וגלו מי חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Miriam's song.
And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one we have exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one who sang our history. With every thread and every strand she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances toward the light. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam stood upon the shores and gazed upon the sea. The wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part within an outstretched hand, and we would pass to freedom and march to the promised land. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced all night long.
And Miriam the prophet took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her just as she had planned. And Miriam raised her voice with song, she sang with praise and might. We've just lived through a miracle, we're going to dance tonight. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. The women dancing with their timbrels follow Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. There's a lot to say about Miriam. I don't think we could do it all tonight. But just one point. Later on in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, it will talk about the death of Miriam. And immediately following that very succinct statement that she died and was buried, the people begin to claim and complain. By the way, the people complain all the time. This is what we learn. They complain all the time. They kvetch, is that they have no water to drink. So the rabbis tied, T-I-E-D, tied the presence of water throughout the wandering of 40 years to the merit of Miriam the prophet. And they said that underneath the surface of the wilderness, a well flowed. It's called Miriam's well. And when Miriam passed on, the well stopped, and that led Moshe to strike the rock. Some say that the well was a rock that traveled with them, and there was streams of water coming out of the rock. So it's one of the reasons maybe Moses struck that rock, knowing that that was the source of Miriam's well. But this combination of Miriam as a prophet, as a leader, singing the joy of the victory, if you will, has really remained with us for thousands of years. And she serves as a remarkable model of one of the few females, to be honest, that the Torah talks about. Really one of the few. And an exemplary one at best, at her best. On page 26, let's read together. Cause us, eternal our God, to lie down for well-being and help us arise, our ruler to life. Spread over us the shelter of your well-being, and fix in us good counsel in your presence. Save us for the sake of your name and shield us. Keep us far from enmity, illness, strife, hunger, and fear. Keep oppressors from confronting or pursuing us. Let us be covered by the shadow of your wings, for you are our protector and helper. Mercy and compassion is your rule. Guard our going out and our coming in for life and for well-being from this time forth and forever. Ufros aleinu sukat shelomecha,
Baruch atah Haporei Sukkah Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Amo Yisrael, al Yerushalayim ve'al kol ha'olam.
Amen.
We rise on page 27 for the declaration of Shabbat.
V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
Following the Chatzi Kaddish on page 28, and that's the demarcation of a transition in the service. We transition on page 29 to the standing meditation in silence. Read the words of the page, if you will, the words of your heart. Page 29 to page 39, and you may be seated once you have concluded. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויאמר דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי בכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ועגלה, ובזמן קהרי ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
ברכו.
לעילא מקור בחטא ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דהמירם בידמה, ואמרו אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו לאברהם ליצחק ויעקב ולישראל ויהיה גדול יבונו נביא גואל נמשו משהו וחוזר ושבע ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחיים ביתם דרך מושיע מה שברוח ולדאגה שבחיים וחסר אתה קדוש שמך קדוש אתה קידשת יום השביעי נשבעת ותעלי בינו לבחרים מפעמים ברוך אתה ונקדש Beshalach. עושה שלום וברמה ויעזור שלום לכל ישראל וכל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן.
Say shalom b'mama uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ויעקב יושבי תבל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ויעקב ויעקב ישראל, ויאמרו amen.
That too was a tune that was brought into the service by Debbie Friedman. We are now going to say some words of encouragement and prayers for healing. So if you have names you want to put in the chat, or if you'd like to recite names here, we'll go around the room. So please put names in the chat as we will be offering words of encouragement. Any names? People who are ill you'd like to mention? Michael? Yes? Ellen? Nancy? Anyone else? Bina bat Shlomo Hirsch Sarafega, Yehudit bat Fruma. Anyone else?
Chris. Jonathan Ben Hudo.
You want to read some names, please?
Jenna Flanzer, Stephen K., Declan Laurie, Phyllis Mendel, Ed DeVos, Eve Weiner, Nix Casey, Lynn, Linda Joan, Debbie Joyce, Yehudit Bat Firma, Wendy and Jamie Belweiss, Catherine Ava Stephanie, Ty Mark Casey, Susie, Teresa Freer, Gershon Ben Ella, Ruth, Leslie Olzwang, Donna Galloway, Ella Ben Shofsi. That's all.
Misheberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
That too was by Debbie Friedman. So many wonderful things we can bring into the service, and may her memory truly be a blessing for all of us. If you're able to rise, we rise for the Aleinu, which is on page 44. 44 in your Sidurim.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת קרא ליוסף בראשית, שלא עשנו עם גוי ארצו, ולא שמנו עם משפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו עמהם, וגואלנו עם כל העולם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונטה שמיים וישראל. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. I'd like to extend condolences to John Pollock and to Fiona Epstein on the loss of John's mother, Ann. And there is information that you've received about a Shiva tomorrow, a Sunday, and Monday evening as well. It'll be a Zoom Shiva Monday evening at 7:30. There'll be an in-person Shiva. The information is out on if you're on our list, our membership list. This coming week, we also commemorate the yahrzeits of Dorothy Doe Bankhead, Moshe Blozier, Muriel Brown, Herman Budnick, Joseph Chassler, Sophie Cohen Fine, Roselle Diamondstein, Pearl Feiner, Pepe Beck Ginsburg, Milton Hassan, Irene Hogan, Gladys Jacoby, Francis Joy, Thomas Kasoy, Suzanne King, Carl Kirshner, Eunice Korsakov, Jane Kern, Yosef Lokshin, Vera Mirkin, Irving Morse, Herman Schottenfels, Mitchell Sversky, Claire Simon, Joseph Wheeler, Henri Michael Weitzner, and Murray Zellner. Any others online? There is one? Okay.
Five more seconds, just because people might be a little.
No worries. Yeah.
There aren't any? So if you are in mourning or commemorating a yahrzeit, please rise for the mourner's Kaddish, which is found on page 48. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divra chilutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol bet Yisrael. B'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach v'olam u'me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpo'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekutsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shlomo Rabbah mishemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We have a number of exciting things coming up at TBZ. All of this is in the happenings. Again, a big mazel tov to our very own Debbie Gardner and Rabbi Sam Seikel on today's Friday. So the gala, which was last night, from the Synagogue Council of Massachusetts on their tremendous work in the community, educationally, from young ones to old ones, helping to grow the community during this pandemic. And mazel tov, I know Jenny's here. I don't know if Sam's here as well. But mazel tov on all that you've done for the community, both within TBZ and Boston. As Reb Moshe mentioned, we have a Tu B'Shvat Seder, which is led by Rabbi Shoshana Friedman. That is 6:30 on Sunday. Boker Tov TBZ continues to be thriving. That is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. There's a lot. This is like a book in itself. There's a lot of stuff, so I'm just doing a few different things. Eat, Pray, and Learn is happening next Wednesday, as it is every week, 7:30, in person only. And Torah study Wednesday night online, 7:30 p.m., 12 hours after Eat, Pray, and Learn. So you can get the total fix of learning TBZ style. And then Thursday night is studying Talmud with me. There's a whole bunch of other good stuff, and I encourage you to find it all in the happenings. Wishing everybody a good Tu B'Shvat, a meaningful MLK Day, and a good Shabbat as well.
Right. You also, many of you received at home, perhaps today, you'll get it tomorrow, our brochure for spring of all the activities that are there. I think there are a few out there on the counter as you go out to your left. But it gives you sort of an overview of what we have planned between now and June. And you'll have a lot of things to do. Also, if you haven't let Tiferet, Rav Tiferet, our rabbi who's in charge of education, know what kind of courses you'd like to see, there was a survey sent out a while back. And if you haven't filled that out, just give us an idea of what you would like to study, because that gives us a chance to fulfill that.
Yeah.
We don't know what you would like to study unless you let us know. So that would be very helpful as well. So we're coming to the conclusion of our service. We have welcomed some guests who are here for the first time, Indigo and Sarah. Nice to see you both. And anybody online who's there for the first time, hello, and good to see you guys as well. And we'll sing Shalom Aleichem, which is on page 50 in our booklets.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Bochem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
You rise for the Kiddush on page 50 at the bottom of the page if you'd like to follow.
Savri.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'atzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh b'reishit, ki hu yom techila, lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim. L'chaim.
Yeah. Trying to think
You
of
may
a
be
good
seated.
Debbie Friedman closing tune.
We're going to get Debbie Friedman closing tune. So I just put him on the spot
Besides the
to
Aleph
find
Bet.
one. Besides the alphabet.
Besides the alphabet. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now, but tomorrow for sure there'll be a
Another
good
Debbie
Debbie Friedman
Friedman's.
closing tune.
So we're going to end with just a nigun.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Len, for all your help. Tomorrow morning, Torah study at 9. Service will begin at 10.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Everybody online in
Glad you could join
person.
us.